I thought I'd show you a little bit of my machine quilting on this tablet paper keeper from Nancy's Notions. It's a good example of how I do a lot of my quilting. I've done a lot of the outline quilting already on this little quilt top cover, and I've done it mostly so far in 30 weight rayon thread, which is what I sell on the website and what I like to outline quilt in. I've done the trilliums in the center here, and I'm doing the leaves. I've already done some of the fuchsia ones, and now I'm getting ready to do the purple ones. Here's the thread that I'm going to use. I've got a purple 30 weight rayon that will be my top thread, and then I've got two different 50-60 weight cotton threads for the bobbin that I will probably pick the one on the right. It seems to have a little bit closer color than the other one on the left. So I'll get started machine quilting and showing you how I do that. But I thought I'd pan out here a minute and show you right down here at the bottom below my sewing machine is where I actually keep all my threads. So they're very easy to access. There's my rayon on the left and my cottons that I use in my bobbin on the right. They're looking pretty tidy right now, and there's my silk. There's the container that I keep all of my needles in. That's right there too, all the different sizes, and then the rest of my threads are in here. Easy to get to. I just wanted to share with you that this is something that I use especially in the winter to keep my fingers tacky when I'm machine quilting. There's a lot of different products out there that will do this. You certainly can use gloves. I don't particularly like to have gloves on my hands when I'm working, but gloves are great too. And this is just one that I got this at the office supply store, and you just rub it on your fingertips, and then it keeps your hands tacky while you're machine quilting. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring my bobbin thread up to the top before I start my quilting, and I'll start over here so you can see it. I actually just take one manual stitch, bring it up, and there's a little loop there, and if I just grab that little loop and pull it through, then my threads don't get tangled on the back. That's kind of long. I usually kind of clip those back, and I'm just going to hold them down while I start the machine quilting. I'm doing free motion machine quilting. That means that I have my presser feet down. I'm actually in control of how I move my quilt around. There is no feed dog moving it, and I have an open-toed foot that helps me see, and it's clear. That really helps me see where I'm going and what I'm doing. So I'm just going to start by outline stitching this little quilt part here. These are my oak leaves, and I kind of pick a color that matches somewhat to the leaf and just kind of go slowly around the shape of my leaf. Not too fast, because I want to stay right snug next to the leaf shape. I like to go right next to, not on top of my design elements when I'm quilting. I like the look of that the best, but you might like a different look when you're working. I really like this 30 weight rayon thread that I'm using. I've been using it for a long time. It's color fast, it's big. 30 weight is bigger than, say, 40 weight. And it comes in such beautiful colors, and it's shiny, and it adds a nice detail element to the edges of my pieces that I like very much. Get back here to the beginning. I'm going to go back in here and do a little extra detail work on this just to give it a little bit more interest. And I can speed up a little bit when I do this, because I don't have to worry so much that I don't go outside of the edge of the piece that I'm working on. I've done a lot of oak leaves in my work. I really like the way that they create borders on pieces that I'm working on, and a lot of my quilts are inspired by walks in the woods with my little dog George, and certainly trilliums are in my woods. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to actually pull this, and I'm going to pull all of my threads to the back. Since this piece isn't going to be exposed and finished, I don't really have to worry about tying everything off. You can see I don't even have a back on this yet. Well, I'm going to actually do it another way. I have these little self-threading needles. They have a little notch in the front, and they allow me to then just grab that thread right through the top, and I can then pull it to the back side. I can also grab these two little threads right there and pull them right through the top like that, and then I can stick them to the back. And I'm actually going to take these and just tie them together because I don't have to. Normally I would tie a square knot at the surface and then put that into the sandwich of my quilt. So that's how I'm going to do all of the oak leaves. That's how I've done the trilliums on this. And I'll show you when I get all my oak leaves done how I'm going to machine quilt in between here. I wanted to see the close-up of that little leaf after I have done quilting it, and here's the little fuchsia one next to it, and then here's a close-up of that self-threading needle. I think you can see that little notch in the top that I used to bury the threads with. You'd like to see what my table looks like when I'm working. I'm not exactly neat, and lots of times I just push stuff aside to make room until I'm all finished with the project. Okay, I'm getting ready to do the filler in the background of this paper keeper that I'm doing with Nancy's Notions and Clover, and I'm using silk thread this time to do the background on this because I want it to disappear somewhat into the background, but I still want it to be quilted, and the silk is a lighter weight thread, and I'm going to show you one of the patterns that I like to do. This one is called, I call it bark. I adapted it from a pattern that I saw my good friend Judy Perez do on her Under Seas quilt, the really pretty blue one. I can't remember the name of that, but I took a picture of it and then I practice it. Mine looks a little different, and that's something that I tell my students all the time when they're machine quilting is take pictures of other people's machine quilting and then go home and see if you can make that pattern again. Hers looks more like water, mine looks more like bark, but it's a fun filler pattern that I like to do. The idea behind this is that you create these nice wavy lines, and when I'm making this I try to work myself up and then back down again, and as I'm working I try not to make any of my bark stop places end at the same spot, so that I'm constantly stopping at different places, and it allows me to work it back and forth very nicely. And as I come down here you'll see I can come back into a space where there's an opening and just keep going back and forth and back and forth. It's a really pretty easy design. You have to be pretty fluid with your movement, and you have to make sure that you get some nice crisp points when you're working. One of the things I talk about when I'm machine quilting is to make sure that you have really good crisp pivot points. Notice I'm not really stopping as I'm changing direction, I'm just changing direction. But I do have to stop there because I got myself into a spot where I have to move my needle. So I'll come back and I'll show you a close-up of this when I get it all finished. Well, I finished all of the machine quilting on the surface of this, and now I'm going to give it a good steam press before I start putting it all together. I'm going to layer it with a white cloth and just steam it really well, and that will set all of my fused pieces, and it'll set my machine quilting stitches, and I'll be ready to finish my project. And the last thing that I did to this little project was I put on a fused binding and I top stitched it, and now I'm just going around it with a little tight stippling so that it doesn't come up or fray up when I'm working on it, because it is a fused binding and I just want to make sure that it doesn't come off on me. So I'm using my Microtex needle and the YLI silk thread that's very thin, like I used for the quilting in the background, and I'm doing a tight little stippling along the edge here, just as a preventative measure, because this is something that will get handled and used a lot. I want it to hold up to the wear and tear that I'm going to give it. When I do stippling in something really tight like this, I'm not going really fast. In fact, I never really go really fast, because I think you can get out of control if you go really fast. But I'm going nice and steady so that my spacing and proportion stays the same, and I'm keeping control of where I'm going and what I'm doing.